For the news.
On the occasion of Students' Day, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has paid tribute to the spirit of patriotism inherited from the generation of May 19, 1956. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to the examining of draft legislation's presentations on civil status. The 2025 annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank kicked off today at the International Conference Center here in Algiers with technical meetings ahead of the official opening. As the Palestinian National Council denounced the crimes perpetrated by the Israeli army in Gaza as a tantamount to a systematic ethnic cleansing of the 20 Palestinians who were killed in bombardments targeting today the enclave. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Mariam Bershi. On the occasion of the Students' Day, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has paid tribute to the spirit of patriotism inherited from the generation of the 19th May 1956, who sacrificed their studies to join the fight for freedom. The President recalled the challenges Algeria had to face after independence, notably in education, and highlighted the efforts made to build a solid national university system offering conditions worthy of learning and training promising young people. He reaffirmed the state's commitment to promoting the university and adapting the training system to the requirements of the knowledge-based economy, notably by supporting the integration of young graduates and the creation of SMEs, small and medium enterprises. President Tebboune shared his pride at the achievements made by Algerian students in innovation and mastery of advanced technologies, congratulating all students, heirs of the martyrs Amra Rashid, Talib Abdurrahman, and the whole heroic generation. Earlier, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Sarah Goudjil, as well as the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, both addressed messages to the Algerian students on the occasion of the 69th anniversary of the National Student Day, saying that they represent the pillar of Algeria. Meanwhile, Mr. Azouz Nasri has been elected as the new Speaker of the Council of the Nation at a plenary session devoted to the establishment of the new members and the election of the Speaker of the Council as part of the renewal by half of the membership of the Council of the Nation for the year 2025. Mr. Nasri, the candidate of the parliamentary group of the presidential third party, was acclaimed by all the parliamentary groups represented on the Council of the Nation. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to the examining of draft legislation and presentation on civil status, animal health, and the National Autism Plan. More details in this report by Masoud Sharfi.
He instructed the government to step up its action to meet the concerns of citizens. Regarding young people working as individual micro-importers, President Tebboune ordered their once and for all in order to be integrated into the formal foreign trade circuit to make them benefit from the advantages associated with the status of auto-entrepreneur. He also instructed the Prime Minister to urgently set up a commission to define the business mechanisms for these young people. On an international level, he called for the organization of a meeting to monitor the Algerian-Slovenian partnership, notably in the fields of pharmaceuticals, scientific research, and artificial intelligence, and to examine the launch of a shipping line with Slovenia. Regarding the Algerian-Omani partnership, the President of the Republic stressed that full attention should be given to investment projects and to implementing the recommendations and decisions made by the leaders of the two countries in various sectors, including agriculture, the automotive industry, Hyundai, the project to set up an Algerian-Omani shipping company, and the launch of a shipping line linking Algiers to Muscat. President Tebboune also stressed the importance of coordination between the local authorities to promote tourism and ordered the implementation of the Financial Action Task Force recommendations, highlighting the Algeria's progress in terms of financial transparency. The Council approved a number of decrees related to the appointments and dismissals of senior government officials.
Algeria is following with great astonishment recent development in the French communication on the subject of visas, will respond by strictly applying reciprocity to the extent of the French party's failure to fulfill its obligations and commitments. The Algerian government denounced the use of unusual channel by the French government to announce its decisions in total disrespect for the established diplomatic practice and in an equally total violation of the provisions of the 2013 Algerian-French agreement organizing visa exemption for holders of diplomatic and service passport. In fact, to date, in blatant contravention of the provisions of Article 8 of this agreement, Algeria has not received any official French notification through the only channel that applies in relations between states, namely the diplomatic channel. The chargé d'affaires at the French embassy in Algiers, who has been summoned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs 4 times on the matter, has systematically stated that he has received no instructions from the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Similarly, and to date, he has been unable to respond to formal Algerian request for clarification on this same subject. The Algerian government solemnly reiterates that it is the French side that bears full and complete responsibility for initial violations of the 2013 agreement on visa exemption for holders of diplomatic and service passports. The Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of African Affairs, Mrs. Bakhtaselma Mansouri, has received the Executive Director of the Continental Secretariat of the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, Mrs. Marie-Antoinette Roscott, who is visiting Algeria to participate in the annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank Group, which is winding up today here in Algiers. During the meeting, both parties emphasized the importance of continuing joint efforts to strengthen the role of the APRM under the leadership of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, in his capacity as current chair of the Forum of Heads of State and Government of the mechanism. They also stressed the need to activate national bodies to anchor the principles of good governance and to strengthen consultation and coordination to meet of the continent's development and stability objectives. The 2025 annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank kicked off today at the International Conference Center here in Algiers, with the holding of technical meetings ahead of the official opening of the event scheduled for tomorrow under the high patronage of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. This meeting, mostly held behind closed doors, focused on the technical and organizational aspects of the plenary sessions, with the aim of defining priorities and draft outlines of discussions of the areas of priority to the bank. Asabikar has more details.
The 5th annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank kicked off under the theme Diversifying Economies, Enriching Lives, and they started with the Islamic Development Bank Group's Boards of Directors meeting held behind closed doors. On this first day of the meetings, Tamima Tamimi, a member of the Executive Committee of the 5th region, spoke about the importance of enabling the youth to take part in the implementation of the Islamic Development Bank goals, highlighting the bank's focus on young people for a promising future.
In this evolving global landscape, young people are not merely responding to change, they are driving it. They are making the change. And now, is this more evident than across our 57 member countries, where nearly 30%, حوالي ثلث, 1/3 of the population of the world's youth live. And by 2050, 1/3 of the world global youth will be in our member countries. This is not simply a demographic trend, it is a strategic inflection point. The decisions we make today about education, about employment, and economic inclusion will shape the competitiveness, the cohesion, and the stability of our societies for generations to come. The theme of this year's forum is future-ready skills and solutions for youth employability.
He also spoke about the challenges facing employability, stressing that this particular point should be the focus of the bank and the South countries.
Speaks directly to the imperative. It reminds us that preparing for the future of the work is not a technical exercise, but a development requirement. One that calls for integrating systems capable of translating talent into productivity, translating aspiration into agency, translating innovation into long-term value.
Meanwhile, the 13th Islamic Development Bank Youth Development Forum, under the theme Future Ready Skills and Solutions for Employability, was held to speak about the major issues facing young people and women, notably employability and job creation. Kevin Frey, CEO of Generation Unlimited, spoke about the importance of organizations funded for women empowerment.
On focusing on women in programs, young women, absolutely essential. So thank you to the question from Young Women. 2/3 of young people not in employment, education, or training globally are young women. We've tried to address this in many, many of our programs. It's kind of like building a soccer pitch that you say is open for the whole community, but then when you go to visit, it's only the boys who are playing. This happens quite often with employment programs. So my strong advice is 100% dedicated programs focused on young women. So if we're going to have employability programs, our most successful programs are ones where we say we're going to 100% focus on young women, every dollar coming into this program. That's where we've been successful. Otherwise, you index to young men.
Let's note that these meetings mark an important step in Algeria's efforts to strengthen its role in the Islamic finance industry and promote closer economic cooperation with the Islamic world.
Moving on to the situation in the Middle East, as the Palestinian National Council denounced the crimes perpetrated by the Israeli army in Gaza as tantamount to a systematic ethnic cleansing. Over 20 Palestinians were killed in bombardments targeting today the enclave. Mr. Sharfi reports.
According to the news agency Wafa, several others were wounded in the violent airstrikes that hit the southern town of Khan Yunis. This came as the Israeli army intensified its operations in the Gaza Strip, worsening the dire crisis triggered off by the several week-long blockade imposed on the territory. In this connection, the World Health Organization, WHO, said it was alarmed by the increasing risk of famine in the Gaza Strip, where it affirms 2 million people are starving on account of the Israeli blockade. Addressing the organization's annual meeting in Geneva, the head of WHO argued that the evacuation orders issued by the Israeli occupying authorities and the shrinking of the humanitarian space had resulted in a disastrous situation on the account of the increasing number of deaths, notably caused by diseases. Meanwhile, UNICEF stressed the necessity to authorize the funneling of humanitarian aid and to enforce a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, where it said children are confronted with relentless bombardment and are deprived of medical care and basic services. In a similar move, Spain warned against the critical, devastating and extremely inhumane situation prevailing in the Gaza and urged for a decisive and immediate cessation of the Israeli hostilities, while highlighting that the Palestinian people has the right to live in peace. This came as the Palestinian National Council affirmed that the crimes carried out in the Gaza Strip were no longer limited to military aggression, but rather a blatant example of a systematic ethnic cleansing and a cold-blooded genocide. These include the systematic murder of the Palestinian community's leaders and elite in an attempt to, as it put, erase the collective memory and to deprive the society of all tools enabling its progress.
Iran has said that it is ready to open a new chapter with European countries regarding its nuclear program if it noticed a genuine willingness and an independent approach from the European parties. In a statement made during a diplomatic forum held in Tehran, the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that Iran, if Europe had the necessary will to improve the situation, it would restore the mutual confidence and promote its relations with the European countries. The so-called Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or Iran Nuclear Agreement, signed in 2015 between Iran and the main nuclear powers, plus Germany, provides the lifting of sanctions in return for monitoring of Iran's nuclear activities. It is worth noting that negotiations were held 4 days ago in Turkey between Iran and the European powers on Iran's nuclear activities. They followed a 4th round of talks held between the US and Iran at Oman's mediation to try and achieve progress on the Iranian nuclear issue. In Sudan, a group of rescuers said that at least 14 people have been killed in strikes by the Rapid Support Paramilitary Forces (RSF) on the Abu Shuk displacement camp in the Darfur region. This camp shelters tens of thousands of people who fled the war that has been raging for over 2 years between the regular army and the RSF. The bombardments attributed to the RSF hit the market and other parts inside the camp, including mosques and homes near public infrastructures. According to the UN, which described the conflict in Sudan as the world's worst humanitarian disaster, the Abu Shuk camp, located on the outskirts of El Fasher in the capital of North Darfur, besieged by the RSF since May 2024, is plagued by famine like other parts of the country. El Fasher is the last provincial capital in Darfur, still under the control of the army led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. The RSF, led by his former deputy Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, seized the neighboring Zamzam camp in April, where nearly 1 million displaced people lived and which has been almost entirely emptied following a devastating offensive. US President Donald Trump is set to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin about peace in Ukraine, as European leaders demanded that the Kremlin accept an immediate ceasefire to halt the region's conflict. Trump, who says he wants to be remembered as a peacemaker, has repeatedly called for an end to the bloodbath of Ukraine, which his administration cast as a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Under pressure from Trump, delegates from the warring countries met last week in Istanbul for the first time since March 2022, after Putin proposed direct talks and Europeans and Ukraine demanded an immediate ceasefire. Trump, who said that progress on peace was unlikely until he and Putin get together, said he would speak to Putin. The Kremlin said preparations for a call were underway. Trump, whose administration had made clear that Russia could face additional sanctions if it does not take peace talks seriously, said he would also speak to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and various members of NATO. Former US President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer that has spread to his bones. Across the political spectrum, people wished him a speedy recovery. President Donald Trump said he was saddened by the news, and as for former US Vice President Kamala Harris, said on her X account that Joe Biden is a fighter and that he will face this challenge with the same strength, resilience and optimism that has always defined his life and leadership. That's it for today's News Bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a special interview about the 2025 annual meetings of the Islamic Development Bank.